Good evening and welcome to this May 6th edition of the Norfolk Select Board. My name is Kevin Calcutt. I am joined by my fellow board members Jim Lehan and Anita Mecklenburg. Let's kick our meeting off in the way we typically do. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Justin, would you mind taking us through our agenda this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The board's going to consider opting into a PFAS class litigation agreement, a request to have an additional police officer detail at tomorrow's election, as well as get an update on the status of the Southwood Hospital site.
Nice and concise. Perfect. Thank you so much. So our first item this evening is our public comment period, where we ask anyone in attendance if they'd like to share with the board for items that fall within the purview of the board or the town administrator for around 3 minutes. Do we have anybody who is interested in sharing in public comment this evening? I am seeing none. On to item number 2, vote to opt into the PFAS class action litigation agreement. Justin.
As the board remembers, Mr. Blair Crane, the DPW director, had discussed this potentially coming before the board. In the board's packet, they have a memo from the DPW director. Our town council reviewed the proposed agreement with this litigation group, and they had no issues with it. So I think it's just for the board's consideration whether they want to enter an agreement with this firm to pursue a class action lawsuit regarding PFAS.
Jim, any questions?
No. I was only wondering if it would cost us, there's no cost on our end?
There's no cost up front for the town. The firm receives, payment essentially if there's a recovery. They get about 25%, if I remember correctly, within the agreement. Yes, 25%.
Okay, that was my only question.
Yep. And that's in D of the agreement.
My only question was associated to the other towns that had signed on. I saw in the brief from the legal team, they had the outline of all the states and different municipalities that had signed on, but I didn't see anybody in our general vicinity outside of Foxborough. Is there a reason why you think that is, or?
I think they're starting to now get aggressive and trying to get some communities to come on board. I know they reached out to Millis and Plainville recently, Rentham as well. They've got quite a decent group in Massachusetts, but not within our area.
Yep.
But, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No.
No? Well, in that case, I would take a motion to opt into the class action litigation agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that is a unanimous vote. Our third item this evening is to vote to approve a request by the town clerk for an additional police officer detail at the May 7th, 2024 town election. Justin, what do we have for background here?
Just as the board's aware, the select board did vote to authorize a detail for this election previously. This is part of a process based on the Votes Act. The select board has to determine the amount of police detail officers assigned to an election. We just had a request from the town clerk to add an additional police officer in consultation with Chief Hines. And so we're putting it before the board.
Well, far be it from me to argue with the town clerk's identification of additional resources, but any questions, Jim?
None.
None whatsoever.
None? In that case, I will take a motion to approve the request.
I move that we approve one additional detail officer for outside the polls from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tomorrow.
Sorry. Second.
7th.
There is a motion that has been seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, and that is unanimous as well. Our first discussion item this evening is an update on the status of the remediation and redevelopment of the Southwood Hospital site, something everyone is very excited to hear about.
Yes.
Justin, would you lead us in?
Indeed. Presenting before the board today, we have Mr. Bill Buckley. He's from GFE, represents GFI Partners. He's going to go through a presentation. I just want to quickly say we wanted to bring it before the board because they are presenting before the planning board and PIP group, and we wanted to make sure the select board was involved and had an opportunity to provide some feedback before they present their presentations at further groups and meetings. So we thought it was a perfect time to meet with the board, and I'll toss it to Bill.
All right, great. Thank you. And I mentioned to Kevin as we were walking in, it's an honor to be the last presenter of your tenure as chair of the board. And,
Thank you.
At least that's my understanding that's the case. Yep. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and to introduce 111 Dedham Street, which we refer to as the project. I think many of you are already familiar with 111 Dedham Street, but we've been looking forward to this evening and to finally get a chance to present in front of you. And before we begin, I guess I just want to express our gratitude towards the assistance of Rich throughout this process and Justin, right? Both made themselves available and resourceful to us throughout. So we think this is a great way to kick off a project, right? Because we're in the very early phase, still the very early stages. There's a lot of work to get done, and it's an opportunity to present kind of in a conceptual phase and solicit your feedback and get information from those that. In the community, right, that can help guide us. So I was thinking for an agenda tonight, we want to introduce you not only to the site, but introduce you to GFI, right? We have owned the site just coming up on, well, it's just about 3 years now. A lot's happened in that time, and would like to, I don't know that we ever really had an opportunity to tell you what GFI is about and our approach to development in this site in particular. With that said, I would like to point out that I'm joined tonight by Brian Poitras, who is our Director of Capital Projects, and Brian and I work closely together on this project and many others. We'll provide just a brief overview of the site. I don't want to get into the weeds or details too much on that, and in that part of that overview, give us a brief status of the assessment and remediation from our seat anyway, and then share with you a proposed industrial park project that we think is the right project for the site, and we think is the project that can lead us all towards our mutual goals for the site. Talk a little bit about the zoning analysis that was completed last fall, and just enter into discuss some next steps and be available to answer any questions that you might have. A little background on GFI. GFI is a Boston-based real estate development firm. We've been in existence since 1997. It was founded by a gentleman by the name of Steve Goodman. Steve still sits next to Brian and I in a small office in Boston, and I can tell you Steve is hands-on at every project that we have, and I'm sure that he's going to be here in front of you at some point in the project. We're a full-service real estate development firm where we permit our projects, we construct our own projects, and we manage our entire portfolio. That portfolio has grown to be a little over 17 million square feet of space across different asset classes, including industrial, residential. We own a couple of behavioral health hospitals and education facilities. On top of that, we've been actively permitting, and this is a number that changes on a regular basis, actively permitting over 8 million square feet of Class A industrial space in the region, throughout the Northeast, and even in the Carolinas. This is just a little sampling of our portfolio of tenants. With that amount of space, we have hundreds of companies that occupy our buildings and thousands of jobs. A couple of just I think representative sampling of some of our current projects. One out in Goshen, New York, which is interesting. It's a manufacturer and distributor and producer of kosher wines out in Goshen, New York. Life is Good, the apparel company, I think we're all familiar with, has consolidated their operations at a new building in Hudson, New Hampshire, that we're just putting the finishing touches on. Avantor is over. We own several buildings in the Devon's Fort Devens Industrial Park. Fort Devens Industrial Park. Advantor is a biotech company that's occupying one of our buildings in Devens. In Billerica, Azenta is a life sciences company occupying one of our buildings. In Brockton, there's a air and vacuum systems company, and a new building and company in Shrewsbury called PI is soon to move in. We take great pride in our history of working in community settings, right, and in particular in improving challenging sites, right, and which qualifies us to work on 111 Dedham Street, as we know that this is a challenging site. What I hope to do, as I said, is to provide a brief overview and give you a summary of assessment and remediation activities as we see it to date. A little regional context of the site, and again, some of I just want to acknowledge that all of you understand this site probably better than we do, but just to refresh your familiarity, and this is heading north to the 111 Dedham Street is 97 acres over at on Dedham Street. To the north is the Walpole Town Line, and as you can see to the north is the new Walpole Athletic Field Complex, as well as the Cedar Junction, the MCI Cedar Junction. Kind of to the far west is Route 1, Gillette Stadium, Patriot Place, which we're all familiar with. To kind of the south and southwest is some of Norfolk's. It's Route 115 and 1A interchange. Some of the existing kind of industrial operations in Norfolk. I think a big chunk of that, a lot of your industrial base in that area. The Joffrin Building and I think Four Kicks is right in this vicinity. A little closer site overview, and this doesn't really read all that well, but the existing hospital facility is in this general vicinity. I do want to just point out there's a couple of areas of importance that we will be spending a lot of time focusing on. Is the former sewage treatment beds, filter beds, and an older landfill in this area. There are some existing wetlands in this part of the site, and the vast majority of everything to the north of the site, to the left of this plan, is uplands. The existing facility, it's actually, this is probably from a few years ago, because we have much of the building fenced at this point, but there is a lengthy and pretty detailed history of this building, right? And I don't think it's not my intent or to get into all the specifics and to run through that history, but in general, it's been vacant for some 20 years now, right? I think it was probably 2003, 2004, where Caritas officially closed operations. It served, prior to its time as in the Caritas Christi system. Our records, we've found that some facilities here existed prior to the 1920s, and in 1927 is the first year that it began operating, or thereabouts, began operating as a state hospital, right? Primarily focused on the cancer treatment and some of those the early procedures, and I think the testing with various cancer treatments. It's while under ownership of the state, there were some of this is because different rules applied at different times. We weren't as cognizant of some of the environmental issues that we are today. But there's an existing landfill on the site, so a lot of the trash from decades of operation of the facility has been stockpiled on the site. There's a cap over it, or at least a cap over portions of it. But that landfill needs to be dealt with in accordance with the mass contingency plan. Right? There's an effort that needs to take place there. There's fuel oil spills under the building that need to get resolved. Right, the buildings themselves are loaded with asbestos, and it's a pretty significant abatement project and demolition of those buildings. They're in poor shape. They're not going. We have no plans to reuse any of those buildings. It would be our plans to demolish them. And much of this we knew getting into the site, right? There was some historic assessment work done that we were familiar with. Since we've owned it, we've done a fair amount of our own assessment work. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested there. We knew we were getting a site with challenges. Our kind of the most recent surprise was that we did find that there's that some of the remnants of the cancer treatment systems, there is radiation, there's radioactive remnants on the site in the sewerage, the septic treatment beds that need to get dealt with. So there are soils on site that are going to need to be transported and properly disposed of somewhere far away from Norfolk. So that's kind of a new cost, a little bit of a game changer for us in the needs of the project. And we are working. We've been in touch with Mass DEP. We communicate with them, and of course, and I want to touch upon this in the next slide here. Of course, working with our local PIP group, right, which has been established. So, without getting into all the details on this, we have been working with the local PIP group for public involvement in the cleanup plan out there. Recent reports that we've completed is we submitted a draft interim Phase 2 comprehensive site assessment, which I just want to say, that's not a complete document. There's a lot of work that needs to get done there. I feel like we've done a lot of work on the site. We have, there's been a waste disposal area investigation. We've done some test pits in the landfill. We've done this radiological characterization assessment of the wastewater treatment beds. There's been a significant investment made to date. There's significant work to be completed. Right, we're aware of that. We know that. We want to do that work. We've actually with the help of Rich and Justin, we've made some outreach to EPA. They have a brownfields assessment funding program to see if we think the site is eligible for that. Especially because we did not contribute to the hazardous waste and the contamination that's out there today. So we're exploring that and seeing if we can make that some of that available to us. Regardless of that program or not, right? We're committed to this project, and we're committed to continuing to work with the PIP group. I see Andy here, and I don't want to call him out, but it's been a great resource to us, the PIP group. There's historical knowledge there and institutional knowledge regarding the operations of that site and some of the things we should be looking for that have been of great benefit to us since we've taken ownership of the site, and we're appreciative of their concern and their efforts. One of the things that we've talked about, I think, since early on is, and as I just said, we're committed to this project. We're committed to the town of Norfolk. We own the site. We want to make it. We want to bring a project to fruition here. In order for us to do so, we think that there needs to be an actual project in the making that falls, that's following at least maybe not a parallel path, but at least is not far behind the investment and the work that needs to go into assessment and remediation. We think the project we want to introduce you to is a real benefit to the town. And I just want to note that it was this project kind of came to us. It evolved out of the reuse and zoning analysis process that the planning board participated in, and again with Rich's help and Justin. This is the 97-acre site with a conceptual site plan located on it. Before I get into any of the details, I want to stress that this is really a conceptual layout, right, in a 2D format that's kind of difficult to envision exactly how this will lay out in the site, and I want to help you with that. We have initiated new, although it's conceptual, we've initiated new wetland boundary lines. We're doing new surveys, right? We continue to work on a full civil engineering package for the site. But we're showing here three main development sites for the building. And this kind of the site that I'm circling here with the mouse is approximately 74 acres, and what was referring to as industrial lot A. We're showing commercial lot B, as a 4-acre commercial parcel with frontage on Dedham Street, and commercial lot C, which is an 18-acre parcel, again with frontage on Dedham Street. When I say it's conceptual, I should also just reiterate that, there's work still necessary on utilities, and, we will have traffic experts and sound experts, and as I mentioned, we'll flag the wetlands, and, there will be there'll be a refined plan with a team of experts that eventually present to the planning board on this. I should also note that we're showing an area of approximately 20 acres of which we would show as protected open space that's coming off of Hill Street and off of Valley Street. Few highlights on the proposed project is what's shown on Industrial Lot A is 545,750 square foot. We're calling a multi-tenant, Class A, state-of-the-art industrial park on the 74 acres. It'll be designed to accommodate a mix of light industrial, light manufacturing, office storage, warehouse uses. We think with a kind of a potential tenant mix, similar to some of the in our existing portfolio. You're going to see on this project a welcoming landscaped project entrance. These will be new construction buildings, of course, with modern design features and amenities, dedicated spaces for tenant office, separate entrances and loading areas for them. We have not proposed a use for commercial lots B and C, but we think that's a great opportunity for kind of community engagement and talk about some of the needs of commercial needs in that area. I'm going to show you some very preliminary fiscal impact projections on the project, and I just want to acknowledge that we're aware that a detailed traffic impact analysis needs to be done for the project, right? That's something that we're well-versed in doing. We have the right team of experts in place for that, and we're already starting to identify the intersections that need to get looked at. I talked about some protected open space, and there's also an opportunity. We've kind of reserved an opportunity along this part of the plan to work with the Metacomet Greenway, right? If that's something that the town would like to continue to pursue, we've kept that area open and would entertain and working with them on that. And I had been advised by others in the town to make it clear that this is not a fulfillment center, right? This is not a high traffic generating, distribution warehouse site. So we'll get to I think this is kind of more the fun part here, where we start to get to, we've found, and I kind of touched upon this, that you look at a 2D image of a plan like that, and it's really hard to understand the grading of the site and how the project can fit within the region, within the neighborhood, and it's really some of the tools that we've found the ability to create some of these images that have been great tools for us, because it can also give us some insight on how the site operates, right? How the traffic and the flow within the site. So similar to some of that regional map I showed, regional plan I showed earlier, you see the site here in context to the MCI Cedar Junction, the Walpole Fields. You get a little more closer look at some of the existing industrial in Norfolk with Joffrin and the Four Kicks facility, and you realize how close we are, at least as the crow flies, to all of the development along Route 1 and Gillette Stadium and Patriot Place and everything that's been brought to us over there. Zooming in a little bit on that concept, you can start to see how parking and employee and customer parking would operate at the front. We try to orient these sites where there's any loading facilities, or we try to avoid any potential truck traffic with vehicular traffic. In this case, this truck traffic would enter on the back here, and we have a proposed separate entrance here, which will all be subject to Mass DOT review, right, as with 1A being a state highway. And at least for this concept, we're showing, I think, 3 entrances to each building. Conceptually, this is kind of an idea of how the buildings could be broken up. it could be any combination or any configuration of space along these lines. Two of these could be together. We could have these are primarily, at least in buildings 1 and 2, these are like 50,000, 52,000 square foot blocks. So you could see those joined to a 100,000 square foot user, or even split to 225s. And across the street and across the way in building 3 there, those are pretty much 75,000 square foot blocks that, again, will be designed and built in a way to accommodate, a range of configurations in a variety of potential tenants. I do want to just point out, too, that because of the way the grading of the site works, there's a retaining wall on the back part of behind buildings 1 and 2, and buildings 1 and 2 sit on a kind of an upper tier. Building 3 sit about 10 to 15 feet lower than buildings 1 and 2, and there's kind of a break in grade right down the spine of the site here. That's in order to work with what exists out there for the land, but we also think it's a great design feature in that it's going to really break up the massing of the buildings and create an opportunity for some green space, and it's just not a sea of asphalt parking area. As I mentioned, we would, off of Dedham Street, conceptually, we would, propose that this be a really welcoming, landscaped entrance, and this is similar to what we would propose. We would expect that the landscape and finishes of the site work are at a level capable of, that would appeal or have the curb appeal to support a potential regional corporate headquarters for tenants, customers, employees. Right, we would want this to be again a first-class industrial park facility. This is coming up Dedham Street, heading into Walpole. Here's a view coming from Walpole, heading back into Norfolk. This would be kind of the side of Building 1. Not all that attractive, but it's. And then as we with some of these images now, which we think is such a great tool, we can start to get a feel of what. How the site interacts with employee parking, how it interacts with customer parking, and get a feel for for what 156,000 square foot building looks like with multiple tenants. So here's an elevation of Building 1. We would add, as I mentioned earlier, we would have modern amenities, EV charging stations, and efficient mechanical systems, and kind of some of those up-to-date infrastructure. Building 2, kind of an aerial view, similar. You get a feel for what a 156,000 square foot building looks like and feels like. You can see the retaining wall in the back left of that plan. And Building 3, and here you can almost see, you can start to see the changing grade, right? So this would be kind of this image would be taken from that upper level, looking down on Building 3. As I mentioned, we paid really close attention to the zoning work that was done, and with Rich and with the assistance of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We thought that they provided an outstanding planner to the team, did great work here. And there was some hard answers, I think, or the zoning analysis kind of forced a new discussion on what are some of the viable development scenarios out there. And what came out was, and I don't think this is in any particular order, but the light industrial warehouse with residential, assisted living, and major residential. And we think we made the right decision in not going in a residential direction for the site. We think that this site really is set up well for an industrial park. The industrial park concept is While we have a portfolio among many asset classes, the industrial park work is kind of in our wheelhouse. It's what we do. It's what we do really well, and it made a lot of sense for us to go in that direction. This is also out of that zoning and reuse analysis, and the development viability, right? So those developments that we just saw, the light industrial wood warehouse, the viability of those options was based on a set of metrics that was provided by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and just quickly kind of scan over these, there were 7 metrics identified as to that we would ideally provide kind of the best development scenario for the town of Norfolk, the surrounding neighborhood and community at large, and the property owner in particular, right? And try to find that delta in the Venn diagram there to where we can check as many of those boxes. And pending final remediation project costs, this is a financially feasible project. We're comfortable knowing that, and that's the remedial project costs are still a big question mark to us, but we think together we're going to work through that. We know there's market potential for this concept. We know that we want, and we know we have to. This project must result in a permanent solution, right? That has with no significant risk to human health or the environment. And we think that the environmental remediation and the redevelopment project are kind of interconnected, right? They need to. They both need to happen. I talked a little bit about traffic. We know that we have a lot of work to do there, and we'll provide all that detailed work. Fiscal impact, I have another slide that I want to show you. We know that there's a positive fiscal impact to the town, or at least we're projecting a positive impact. We anticipate that would create somewhere in the vicinity of 350 jobs within the industrial park. And the one box we didn't check is that we're not producing any affordable housing, right? So we went, I think, kind of 6 for 7 here. On the fiscal impact projections, and this is always kind of a good one to close with, because I think it's there isn't a community in the Commonwealth that fiscal impact of a project, or that the opportunity to generate additional revenue that it's important to, right? So we have a consultant we work with that puts these fiscal impact projections to us, and they look up some of the kind of the existing finances from the town from your most recent annual report. Typically, we would project that this project have annual tax revenue of a little over $1 million, $1,035,887. The existing site value, which is represented in the chart to the left here, would go from $5,524,000 up to a projected $66,530,000. I do want to confess I made a mistake on this chart that I was not able to correct today. This is up at 76. I'm one notch up higher than I should be. I think it's still a compelling graph if I knocked it down one, but I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. When we talk about the existing industrial valuation of the town of Norfolk, the number that was provided to us is $22,623,000. This would nearly quadruple that number at $89 million. We would estimate about $300,000 in permit fees during construction of the project. 1% of the CPA revenue comes out to $10,000 annually. We see this, and these are preliminary numbers. This is an economic development investment likely exceeding $55 million in the site, and that's above and beyond a multi-million-dollar remediation costs. And I mentioned we have potential for an estimated 350 new employees in the area, and we see that as an opportunity to strengthen the local economy. So I come to a close here. Here's just a couple of other quick diagrams in aerial. There's a little picnic area at the rear of the site, next to where the Metacomet Greenway could be, so that kind of an employee amenity. And as we close, to bring us to next steps. From from our standpoint, right, these kind of, the first three are really on us, right? We need to continue to invest in site assessment and remediation activities, right? And in doing so, we're going to pursue, if there are programs out there available to us, we'll pursue that, but we intend to move forward with or without those programs. It's important that we continue to work with our local PIP group so that there's public involvement in the cleanup plan as we continue to move forward and learn more about the site. We are actively investing now, and will continue to do so in some of the site engineering and design. We'll advance some of these conceptual plans so we can learn more about what needs to be done for drainage and utilities and the like. Something that I guess is a bit of an ask, and that we could work on together, and by together I mean us and the neighborhood and the town. We'd like to initiate a rezoning process, right? So this proposed project, the existing zoning there, the C6 zone, doesn't support the project that we would propose there. So there needs to be whether that's a new zone or changes to the C6 zone, and we're not coming here tonight with the answers to that, but we'd like to initiate that process and work with the board and Rich and Justin and others. An important next step is that we engage with the community and to do outreach on this project. That's something that we take a lot of pride in. It's something we do really well in our projects. And this is clearly this is definitely a situation where it's going to be a collaboration and a team effort, right? We kind of we really need your support and the support of the community in moving this project along, and in doing so to kind of identify a parallel path, as I mentioned earlier, to permitting, the actual cleanup of the site, and construction of the project. And I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I think that's it. That was I tried to just give you a big picture overview of everything there. I skimmed over some really important details, I understand, right? Especially with some of what we know about the remediation and some of the work that needs to get done there. That's important stuff, right? But thought it was real important that we get here, and again, I want to thank Justin for accommodating us tonight. That we, talking to our town leaders is a really good place to start, right? To the planning board, yourselves. It's this creates an opportunity for us to, again, share the project with the PIP group, other interested neighborhood groups, and continue to build upon it. So we're really excited to be here, and I am available to answer any questions that you have, and Brian can chime in as well.
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for the outline and the update. I know that this has been top of mind for a lot of people here in the community, especially for our board, as it was the prime redevelopment opportunity that was remaining here in Norfolk. So it got the amount of attention that it deserved. I remember back to the first due diligence meeting that we had in a room upstairs at Town Hall, and talking about the possibilities of what we could do with the Archdiocese representatives there as well. And so to see this whole thing come to fruition through all these different stages has been kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So we appreciate the dedication to putting forward a project that not only worked for GFI, but also worked for our communities as well. As you can imagine, there are a number of engaged residents here who are very much looking forward to a final outcome that meets their expectations as well. So we appreciate your engagement from that perspective. Yeah. From my position, I have to admit I'm a little disappointed that there's not going to be a residential component to this. I understand the reasoning why, and I sat through many of the engagements with our representatives from MAPC establishing why exactly we couldn't do that. Couldn't do that. But from my perspective, that might have been our last beacon to be able to get to a measurable advantage as it pertains to affordable housing here in Norfolk. There aren't too many locations in Norfolk that are really built to be able to accommodate for volume housing.
Yep.
And if the vision for our town as we work through our master plan process identifies that there's a desire for this community to eventually get to a point where we don't have the cloud of 40B hanging over us, Southwood was it. Southwood was our point that we could be able to make that kind of gain.
Yeah.
So maybe you could just speak a little bit about the decision not to go in that direction versus what you're putting forward, and what kind of contributed to that.
Yeah. Well, it's I touched upon one of the areas, right, is that we know the industrial market really well. Right. Mm-hmm. That's not to say we have residential in our portfolio. We entertained residential under several different scenarios for this site. Mm-hmm. We questioned we did question with the existing conditions of the site and the remediation, right? The perception of the site from a residential standpoint, right? And some, especially as we get, closer to some of those areas, right? And it's not, the site's going to get cleaned, right? We know it's going to get cleaned, but it's, to live there as if it was for sale housing or, and even rental housing, I think there was, that perception is something we talked about, right? Didn't necessarily separate us. I will say that there's, commercial lot C is still an 18-acre parcel, right, with frontage on 110 there, right? And if that was really a direction, I mean, one of the viable development scenarios, right, did talk about kind of light industrial or warehouse with residential, right? That's something that we could. Yeah, it's something that we'd be happy to kind of to look at and take a peek at. We also, questioned the compatibility of residential and industrial uses, right? So there did not appear to be a good concept that had all the that was all residential. Right. So I will say we didn't think there was a real market for like a mixed use, right?
Yep.
So like an ideal kind of residential above retail, like in a downtown type setting, right? We did kind of rule that out, that we don't think that market exists. There's access to retail in other areas. We saw how close Patriot Place and Route 1 is, right? So that would be something very difficult to recreate there. But if there is an opportunity for multifamily housing on that front 18 acres, right, and none of that, that's an area of the site that has not been impacted, right? I mean, we'd explore that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And granted, I'm just one voice. You might get different feedback from the other non-lame duck individuals who are sitting on our board. So I would encourage you to garner their feedback as well before kind of picking out any.
We were also under the impression that there might be some other, other opportunities in town that are looked at, the MBTA zoning and some other things that that may, provide that affordable housing that the town is looking for. So we want to continue to be a partner. So if there's something that we can do in that vein, then we're here to talk about it.
Thank you. I'll ask one more question, then I'll pass it along so I don't monopolize the time we have. But you talked a little bit about the remediation actions that would be able to address some of the more pressing issues as it pertains to the contamination on site, mainly the radiation. You had briefly talked about the requirement to take that soil off-site. Is there any other kind of large-scale remediation efforts that are going to be associated to the rest of the contamination on site that you've made and a determination on?
Yeah, there'll be other areas of soil removal, right? Whether it be petroleum impacted soils, or there's some work that needs to be done. There's likely some sediment within the stream that runs through the property that is going to need to at least be excavated and handled in some fashion, right? Sometimes the handling of that might mean that it would not result in any exposure to human health, right? It might end up under the building or in areas that it's inaccessible. The landfill is still a concern that we need to continue to analyze. I will say the test pits we completed in, I want to say it was about a year and a half ago at this point. We took 6 test pits and just basically dug right through the top of that landfill down to about 18, 20 feet. And our findings were it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, right? So there's, we did not find any radiation within those tests. Now there's additional sampling that needs to be done. There's additional borings. We need to do groundwater testing wells around there. But our preliminary findings, and I'm speaking outside my area of expertise here, right? We have a team with a licensed site professional and a team that knows this stuff better than I. Andy knows this stuff better than I. But there may be some limited excavation there, and definitely permanent capping over some of what exists there.
Got it. Thank you. Anita?
Absolutely. So I would echo what Kevin said about considering housing for that parcel C. That is definitely a need for the town. So exploring that, I think, I would just like to echo that. And I just had some random things. I do appreciate you coming before the board, so it's really valuable to hear from you. So thank you, and thank you for making sure that happened. I appreciate it very much. About the traffic study, what is the scope of the traffic study? Will that just cover like that intersection right there, or will that go to the perimeter of our town?
So I've spoken to a traffic consultant already. I know that they've identified 5 intersections that would cover the 1A, 115 intersection. If you took a left heading towards, there's so Pine Street and...
Yes, that's what I was wondering, because that could be...
Pine Street and what are those 2 streets there? Is that...
It's 140 and...
Is Everett Street?
Yep.
Everett Street is one of them, and there's another one there. Might be, is it Hill? Valley and Everett Street. Those 2 intersections. And then it was also recommended that we look at Winter Street, heading north into Walpole, that signalized intersection as well. So I know that's 4. There was one more. One more, and maybe, and then we would look at, obviously, that stretch of...
Well, that covers the ones that I thought might be impacted by something like this, so thank you.
Yeah.
The other projects that you showed had a lot of solar and things like that, and I'm assuming when you say state-of-the-art, it would include those kinds of charging stations and solar considerations, or?
It's kind of on a case-by-case basis, right? But almost all of our buildings are built to support solar.
Support solar, and charging stations are kind of all new buildings.
Yeah,
That's easy.
Yeah.
Solar just depends on a bunch of things, the sun, and you have to make it.
The sun.
The sun.
I know, they came to our house and they're like, oh, no, you got to cut down all your trees.
Brian, if you're going to talk, can you just grab a mic so that they can hear you on the YouTube recording and everything? Thank you.
And then I had a question, septic, so would you set up for the industrial park, would it be septic?
So to be determined, right? Utilities is an area that needs to be explored, we're actively doing that, right? There is the ability to do an on-site septic system, right? Wastewater treatment system on-site. That's something obviously that would need to be permitted through. There's a pretty detailed permitting process for that through, I think, your Board of Health and DEP and others. We'd also like to explore what opportunities might exist for an actual sewer connection, right? Much of what's there, the Commonwealth left us, right? So,
Yep.
and if they could be supportive of
That would be amazing.
of helping us to connect to sewer,
agree.
that would be helpful. It would just open up more opportunities for different types of businesses there, right? So on-site treatment would be somewhat limiting. We could make it work. But it would be a little limiting. And, the industrial park itself is not, and this is all tenant dependent, but it's not typically, large users,
volume,
right, with
yeah.
high volume. So we'll, that's all to be determined.
Okay, I appreciated leaving the availability for a partnership with the Metacomet Greenway. I think that's really exciting, so thank you for that. And looking at the Southwood stuff, I haven't looked at anything recently, so I have to confess to that, but what in the past, the PIP group had a lot of concerns. It seemed like most of their concerns were around remediation. Does that continue to be the case?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
So
and
the
that's-
remediation are the major concerns that you're hearing from that group, or is it that it's an industrial site is a concern?
Well, we haven't really presented
Oh,
the project to
okay.
them yet.
I'm getting
right?
ahead of
So,
myself.
so we're going to, our next meeting with them is on May 23rd, right? So we were really hoping, we're going to talk about some of the filings, the filing that we did recently. We also did ask for an extension of time from Mass DEP to complete some of the additional work that needs to be done. So we'll talk with the PIP group about that, get their feedback on that. But yes, remediation is their concern, it's our concern, right?
Yep.
And it's identifying, it's getting my understanding of the PIP group is to get their involvement and their insight and feedback on, to what level that remediation is going to follow, right, and the methods and means and some of that.
Thank you. And my last question is, I'm asking you to do kind of an impossible thing. Could you build me a broad, like very broad timeline sense of what you're imagining? I know I know.
What we'd like, or what's the, or
I'll leave it up to you.
well, I think the planning board asked this question, or at least we might have talked about it afterwards. I mean, ideally, we would, would like to be in front of, if there's, I think the fall has I don't know if it's a special town meeting or if it's kind of like a to-be-determined town meeting. We'd like to be on the fall with a rezoning article, right, which would give us the opportunity to then be pursuing site plan approval or whatever other, work in front of the planning board shortly thereafter, right? I don't know, you have to go through an Attorney General process review, right, or an approval of that. And so this time next year, we'd like to be actively permitting
So your remediation will be done
project.
by this time next year?
And that'll be following a parallel path, right? We would, whether it's with, some of the EPA resources or just our own resources, we would continue on that, conducting the site assessment activities, working towards the generation of a, phase 3, phase 4 plans that select a remedy for the remediation and implementation of that.
Awesome. That's all I have, and I really appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Jim?
Well, first, I'm going to apologize for laryngitis.
Okay.
Which probably means I won't get many questions out.
We'll give you a do-over.
I'm sorry.
Again, if you want.
This is a result of Game 7. Being the senior citizen on this board, I have seen many presentations on Southwood Hospital. So I am eagerly enthusiastic that this comes about. It's a great opportunity. I really don't have any questions because I don't think you can answer them all at this point in time. There's much more work to be done. I've been watching and following the project. Anything we can do to assist you to keep this moving, I think all of us are in agreement that we totally support that.
Okay.
This is a piece of land that we've hoped to be developed for a long time.
Long time.
And whether we can get all of the accommodations that all of us see envisioned in that property remains to be seen. But this is very, very good news. So
The town deserves better than what's out there today, right? They really do. It's
yeah,
so we hope to be able to.
I'm very familiar with that site, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
just thank you. We'll follow. We'll look for more.
Good. All right.
Well, I'll take Jim's time for questions then, if he's not going to leverage all of it. You had mentioned that the industrial building was suited to some of the other tenants that you had worked with your other buildings before. Can you just give us a couple of
Potentially.
examples of those, not only those, but also the commercial buildings, for examples of the types of tenants that you would imagine working in those kinds of buildings?
Sure. So I think it could be any variety. Some of the ones that we showed as representative samplings, right? Like the Life is Good, right? That's a great story of an apparel company, consolidating their operations up there, right? So it's a lot of it's about kind of being in the market and being available for those opportunities, right? So like kind of what is the next Life is Good that's looking that would like to locate in Norfolk, right? Are there life sciences companies? Are there relationships? And Brian's much more well versed in leasing than I am. But are there existing relationships with some of the companies we have in Devens and throughout our portfolio, right? That are looking for additional space. The commercial lot. Now I'm double committing here, but like we talked about the Pondville Medical Center at the planning board. Looked like it would fit perfectly on what is that that 18-acre commercial lot seat, right? So maybe it's a medical office use. Maybe it's a but I think that's where we have an opportunity to let the project evolve. This project, what's driving this project, is going to be the industrial park project on the 74 acres, right? Those commercial, those kind of out parcels, we think there's real opportunity to find out what's needed, right? What does the town need? What does the neighborhood need, and others, and move forward.
Yeah, and I want to give a little perspective, and maybe you already know this, but you see some of these numbers, like it's 500,000 square feet of space, and some of these tenants are 50,000 square feet, and is like, geez, that might seem like big numbers, but really, if you look at how the types of businesses and what kind of space they need, a 50 or 75,000 square foot spaces, that's kind of it's a smaller space in the market, and the ability to, that's what kind of makes this project special. The ability to have 50,000 square foot spaces allows you to attract local regional businesses with local employees that are, a lot of them are going to be making things or putting things, like the example was like a Vantor, in Devon's, they make little fluid pumps that go into make it the processes of other life science companies and chemical plants, and there's local employees, skilled labor, good wages, and they're assembling things, making things. Sometimes it's just people storing things or distributing them around, but these are going to be those type of businesses are kind of good, high-paying jobs, and adding to the community, consumer goods and things like that. So that's kind of what, as opposed to if it was just kind of like a big giant box and you'd think it's Walmart or FedEx or something. These are going to be. This gives us the opportunity to bring in an interesting mix of local companies who are employing local people. That's what we think is the most likely scenario there.
And you just hit the nail on the head. It was what I was trying to get to, right? There was 2 big points I wanted to make sure we covered. One, it's not being just built to spec to a specific tenant in mind. You're not building it to what one specific scope is going to want out of the site. And the second is that it's not going to be what some people will immediately jump to, right? It's not going to be the Walmart, Home Depot combo monster store,
Amazon, right? Yeah.
This is going to be a much different idea and vision than what would immediately jump into somebody's head. So thank you for going through that. I know it's still very, very high level, but it's helpful for people to be able to connect the dots on what the expectation is.
Agreed. Even like service retail, like we built one of these in a prior life. We built one of these in Taunton, and it was like a Safe Light Auto Glass was in one of them, and then there was a Northeast Electrical Distributors, and just it's businesses that they may be in there making and producing things, but a little more like these. They also tend towards like what I call the service retail. Also, maybe there's you're going in to get your windshield replaced or something. It's a for example like a typical Best Buy is like a 40,000 square feet. So that gives you a sense of like the scale of what one of these, it's not huge spaces,
Yeah.
If that's helpful.
It is. But unfortunately, the ship has sailed on Topgolf, right? All right. I'll ask one more question. You had mentioned the Brownfield funding program as an opportunity as part of the look forward and next steps. Early on in this process, we had identified that we didn't think this would be eligible for any kind of brownfield funding. So could you tell me about what changed to make us eligible from your perspective?
Sure. So EPA has a program called the Targeted Brownfield Assessment Program. We're working with EPA on another site where we have a site in Wilmington, Mass, under agreement we're going to close on soon. It's a Superfund site, former chemical manufacturing plant that we hope to be redeveloping. We're going to be redeveloping. So we've been working with EPA, and we've made some contacts and connections there, and we got discussing potential programs. So EPA has been granted. I don't know if it's out of the federal infrastructure bill or if it was part of ARPA funding, but I know that there's been a focused effort on making money available for brownfields and cleanup. So it basically emanated from a discussion with EPA where they said, yeah, you didn't cause the contamination, right? You've actually expended funds trying to identify the solution on the site, and they're supportive of it. And what's pretty good about that program is it's EPA providing direct services, right? So it's not a grant agreement that the town needs to sign or that we need to sign that says with money passing through any of our hands. EPA. We give them access to the site, they go provide the services, and they would provide the data to our LSP, right, to implement into our cleanup plan. So it's really we're hoping we can take advantage of it, right? So it's based on our conversation with them that sparked our potential eligibility.
And I know that Bill touched on it too, and if there are others, if those sources of funding are available, it's nice, it's great. But I want to make sure it's clear, and I think everybody knows that GFI, the developer, is going to be spending, we don't know exactly, but millions and millions of dollars of our capital to address the existing remediation. We don't know the exact figures yet, but it's multiple millions. That's not an exaggeration.
No.
Right? No.
Thank you very much. I have a flurry of other questions that some of them are from my iteration, some of them are just curiosities, but I suppose I'll be handling them as an engaged member of the community moving forward as we go down this process. So I'll save those for some of the PIP engagements and some of the further discussions in the future. But again, thank you both very much for coming in tonight. We really appreciate your time, the content, and the potential partnership moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with elections tomorrow and town meeting next week, right?
Correct.
So, yeah.
You got it.
So we really appreciate it. I mean, we know how busy the time of year this is for all of you, so this was great to get here tonight, and thank you.
Thank you.
We truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Justin, that brings us to item number 5 this evening, which is going to be our general updates. What do we have for the community this evening?
I think it'll pass. Just see you at town meeting.
See you at town meeting. Okay, well, I'll be the one then to pitch the fact that Bill gave us a fantastic segue into promoting our town election tomorrow. Freeman Kennedy, opening up at 7 a.m., open until 8 p.m. We have 2 contested elections, one for select board, one for school committee. So it's ultimately important for the community to get out, cast their votes, and help decide on what could conceivably direct some of the future of Norfolk. So please get out there. If you haven't already gotten your vote in via early voting, make your way to the polls tomorrow at Freeman Kennedy, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Anything else for updates, Anita?
I do. I wanted to recognize Blair Crane and the DPW for their shagbark hickory trees that they gave out for Earth Day. I think that's fabulous, and I really appreciate those efforts. For anybody who's listening, for the broad audience we have out there, it is Teacher Appreciation Week. I had a while back the privilege of working with the Norfolk Public Schools, and our teachers are amazing. So just a little public service reminder that it is Teacher Appreciation Week. And then I wanted to talk for just 2 seconds. I promise to be fast. I know the Bruins are on. To talk about public service a little bit. And public service, Norfolk runs on our public service. We have all of these amazing committees, and including this board right here. In public service, we're volunteers, like we're not paid for what we do. A lot of the work we do is tedious and mundane to keep us in compliance for something, and a lot of it is fun, like the project that we just got to hear about and how we're moving forward, or we get to recognize and honor the amazing citizens that we have in this town. It's critical work in the public service. It has a workload and it has a worry load where you're carrying the responsibilities of the town, and it is often thankless work, but not today. Today, I would like to give our thanks and our gratitude to Kevin Calcott. You see, I'm going to do this just fine. I'm going to be fine. My first way that I knew Kevin was through his voice. Like, he has this voice that should be on radio or TV. He's an amazing voice. But then when you get to know him, you don't hear the voice as much anymore, because what you get to know is this unwavering commitment to his community and to his town. And he's positive and he's forward-looking and he's always prepared. And I've learned so much from him, and he will be missed. So I just wanted to say thank you for the caring energy that you've given to this community, not only on the select board, but all the other committees that you've served. We are so fortunate to have you, and we're looking forward to your future.
Thank you so much.
See, I did it.
You did a fantastic job as well. Thank you. Jim, anything for updates this evening? I don't want to just make you talk any more than you have to, but...
Probably in the community's best interest. I apologize for this. I haven't had laryngitis. I can't remember when, but it certainly is impacting. I just wanted to congratulate you on your time on the board, Kevin. There are a lot of things I'd like to say, but I don't think anybody wants to listen to this voice this evening, so I will not prolong this. But I do want to echo, and please tolerate this, a little bit about what Anita said. This town has always prided itself on volunteers, and the volunteers are nonpartisan individuals. We're not Republicans, we're not Democrats, we're not whatever. We're just citizens who try to help the town. Sometimes they like what we do, sometimes they don't.
That's the truth.
But I can't say I've ever met anyone that didn't believe they were doing the right thing, even when there was disagreement. And this town has always welcomed that kind of conversation. I hope that doesn't change. There's too much of that going on in society today. And politics does not have a place in local government. It doesn't belong here. We're just volunteers trying to do the right thing. And I hope that Norfolk will continue to stay that line. And I know it's getting hard with all of the influences that are around us, but that is our core value. It is a core value of this community. Having served in boards here for over 25 years, I value every minute of that. But every minute of it is just as a citizen trying to help. And I know you're all the same. In parting, I just want to say that one of the advantages of being the old guy on the board is that sometimes traditions get lost. And this is a tradition that we had that I think sometimes we don't want to get lost. None of us need plaques. You know, we don't have enough wall space with a little bit of luck. Nobody wants to see them anyway. But they mean something to be given. Whether or not they're recognized or put on the wall doesn't matter. It's the thought of giving them. So we have something for you. And actually, Anita, my voice is not going to do justice to this. So, oh yeah, wait a minute. Yes, it will. It's coming back.
Okay.
To Kevin Calcutt, in grateful appreciation, the town of Norfolk wishes to express their sincere gratitude to you for giving so much of your time, talent to the citizens of Norfolk in your 6 years serving on the select board, and I would add also planning board as well. So we appreciate your time, your efforts, your talents, and we wish you the very best in your future endeavors where you will be in politics.
Thank you very much, Tim. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Anita, thank you so much.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Well, aside from ambushing Kevin, is there anything else that we need to discuss as part of our updates this evening?
Well, you still have about 25 minutes where you're on the board.
So it sounds like we don't have anything else for updates tonight. We'll move on to our report of the warrants. Do I have a motion to approve the warrants as listed in the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then our last one is the approval of the minutes. Anita?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes of April 17th, 2024, April 23rd, 2024, the joint school committee meeting, and April 23rd, 2024, select board meeting.
Second.
Hearing a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You actually heard that second?
Yes, I got it. Justin, do we have anything else for this evening?
No, sir.
Well, then in that case, it is with profound gratitude to everybody here at Town Hall, Amanda, Justin, Anita, Jim, everybody who has contributed to these last 6 years. Thank you all so very much. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a second. Any further discussion? Very good. All those in favor say aye.
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 Have a wonderful evening and get out to vote tomorrow. Thank you.
Vote, vote, vote.